I want to welcome you to Promise Keepers New Zealand. My name is Chuck Missler, and I'm delighted to be with you. But I also have an opportunity here to explore something that's bothered me ever since I had my second career. As most of you know, I spent 30 years as a professional director in corporate boardrooms. Served on 12 different public boards, was chairman and CEO of 6 different public companies. And that 30 years was very rewarding. I really enjoyed the fellowship and the caliber of people I had the privilege of serving with. But then about 30 years ago, I switched careers. I abandoned my board career for full-time ministry. I'd done it up till then as a layman and enjoyed it, but didn't take myself seriously as a Bible teacher. But about a little over 25 years ago, I really made my biblical commitments my primary objective. But I actually was in for a shock, because much to my amazement, I discovered the kinds of people I found myself trafficking with was very different than the people that I had gotten used to in the corporate boardrooms. Now, the people in the boardrooms may not have been saved, but they were men of ethics, men who took their callings seriously. And I realize now, looking back, I was spoiled. When I got into what I'll call, for lack of a better term, professional Christianity, I was startled with how casual people took commitments. There was no sanctity of a commitment. People would agree to one thing in one meeting and a little later come back and say, gee, I've changed my mind. And meanwhile, other people have made commitments. And the business confusion startled me. And it wasn't they were bad people. That wasn't the problem. Clearly, though, they had no training in what you and I would think of as normal business ethics. And I was troubled by that. There seemed to be such a different standard of commerce among people in the ministry than I had gotten used to on Wall Street. And that puzzled me for a long time until I encountered 2 Peter 1, verses 5 through 8. In this, Peter talks about, he says, and beside this giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. And if these things be in you and abound, they make you that shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Fabulous passage. But I want you to notice he's calling us giving all diligence. That should get our attention right away. And if you study this passage, you realize he's building a chain of qualities that should be driving us. And giving all diligence to your faith to begin with, right? And then virtue, and then knowledge, and then to that temperance, to that patience, to that godliness, to that brotherly kindness, and then, of course, charity. The thing that startled me, see, when we read this passage, especially in the King James, we get to that second one, virtue, and it's an abstraction. It doesn't rattle when we shake it. What do we mean by virtue? Moral conduct, ethics. And it startled me to notice where Peter places that issue. That's ahead of knowledge. That's ahead of all those other things. He says, add to your faith virtue. That's step number 1. Basic business ethics. And yet when I have come to the conclusion, I realize it's not that people in Christian ministry are bad people. They're just untrained. They don't have the basic focus on what you and I, as businessmen, would think of as basic ethics. The men I traveled with were men whose word was their bond. They may not have been saved theologically, but you could bank on on the commitments they make verbally. A handshake in a boardroom was enough to start companies, and people relied on those commitments. That's what made it all work. But in the last few decades, being primarily in professional Christianity, I have to tell you candidly, there's a real challenge there. Many, many executives that are Christians keep it a secret in the boardroom for fear they be identified with the shoddy lack of sanctity of commitment that pervades the Christian community. Let not that be our earmark at all. All of us as promise keepers, let's live up to the name. Let's keep our promises. Let's be slow to give a commitment, but having given it, make it your bond. And so with that, I appreciate being with you.